You going?
I'm not gonna make it this year.
Oh,
I've been away.
yeah. Seems like the kind of thing if you do it once, and Kathy was all excited about.
It's more for the elected officials than it is for the administrators. So I'm gonna be away part of this week.
Oh, good.
So it's like
Something fun, I hope?
yeah, it's going good.
Oh, good, good.
So I don't know. I have a charge, but I ain't much of a charge. So I hope my phone doesn't die.
Yeah, I'm okay. Yeah, I did.
Good evening. Good evening. It's so good to see so many of you out there. Thank you. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you hear me?
Good evening to everyone in the audience tonight and to those of you who are joining us live stream. The second item on the agenda after the Pledge of Allegiance is announcements. Just to let you all know that I attended a conference at Penn State this past week, and so we got a lot of information, a lot of good things coming down the pike. But the stimulus grant, there have been some changes from when it first came out. So we will be having an attorney come and speak to us, to council and to the administration about some of the changes that have occurred. So we'll keep you updated as that goes on. May I get a motion for item number 4, approval of the minutes? Oh, I'm sorry, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Calabrese,
Present.
Councilor Fascio,
Present.
Councilman Getzi. Councilman Getzi's participating by phone this evening. Councilor Sapp,
Present.
Deputy Mayor Pecora.
Present.
Thank you. May I get a motion for item number 4, approval of the minutes?
Can we do them all at once? Can we do them?
All 3 at once, yeah.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve minutes of January 3rd, January 24, and February 21, 2022.
Thank you, Councilor Fascio. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes?
Councilman Getzi,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sapp,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese.
Yes.
Minutes approved.
I see some new faces, so just to let you know, in case you haven't been here before, what happens is this is being videoed, and we do have a court reporter. So if it sounds as though we're overly formal, part of it is because we're making a record here. So when we speak to each other, we will address each other by our title and our name, because even though you might know us, or although you see what's happening, if somebody goes back to look at this record later, they need to know who it is that's making the motion and so forth. May I get a motion for item number 5?
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve expenditures totaling $2,850,517.81.
Thank you, Councilor Fascio. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Sapp. Any public comment? Any comment from council? Roll call, please.
Councilman Getzi,
Yes.
Councilwoman Sapp,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes,
Councilor Fascio.
Yes?
Expenses approved.
thank you. Before we move to items number 6A and B, I wonder if our engineer, Mr. Minsterman, could give us a brief explanation of items 6A and B.
Yes, thank you. First is a resolution to award two contracts for the CCTV. It stands for Closed Circuit Televising Inspection and Cleaning Services for the sanitary sewer lines. Contract A and B in the amounts of $179,010 and $211,775. This is a contract that you bid and let every year as a result of the operation and maintenance plan that you're obligated to implement, and this is resulting in televising the sewer lines and looking for defects. The defects then are to be repaired under a sewer repair contract, which will actually be in front of you next month. So that explains the first resolution. The second is Old Coal Hollow Road. There is a storm sewer there that is in poor shape. The inlets and the piping is collapsing. The inlets are in need of replacement. So that's a project along Old Coal Hollow Road in the amount of $183,780. That is to fix that infrastructure and get it back into working condition.
Thank you, Mr. Minsterman.
Welcome.
May I get a motion for item 6A?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilor Sapp.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve resolution 6A and B. 6A reading approved resolution number 2022-14 awarding 2022 CCTV inspection contracts A and B to State Pipe Services Incorporated in the amount of $179,010 and $211,775. And then B, approve resolution 2022-15 awarding the Old Hollow Road Sewer Repair Project to Snyder Environmental Services in the amount of $183,780.
Let me just confirm with the solicitor, we are permitted to do A and B together?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman Pecora. Any public comment? Any comment from council? I would just like briefly to say that, we don't think about our sewer system often until we get our sewer bill, but the reality is Penn Hills has a very, we have probably the best sewer system in all of Allegheny County. I'm very proud our directors back there. We're actually doing the proper thing. We're keeping it maintained. We're spotting problems where they might exist. So I'm very proud to say that I'm very proud of our efforts here. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Sapp,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora,
Yes.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey. Yes. Item 6A and 6B approved.
Let the record reflect that Councilman Getzey voted yes on those items. May I get a motion for item 7A?
Madam Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Sapp. I'm sorry, Councilwoman Sapp.
I'd like to make a motion that we receive and approve ordinance 7A, approve the ordinance 2690 of 2022, amending the zoning ordinance of Penn Hills for a vacant parcel located on Salzburg Road, parcel number 634-K-326, for the expansion of parking area of Christ Transportation.
Thank you. May I get a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any public comment? Yes, please come to the microphone.
I think this is referring to the bus garage.
Mhm.
I don't have an agenda, sorry. My name is Byron Cohut.
Could you please state your name for the record?
Yeah.
And if you could, please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes.
Dr. Byron Cohut, 117 Martinique Drive, 1995 Penn Hills grad. Very happy to be here tonight. Thank you for hearing me, Mayor Calabrese and councilman. Lived in my address for 20 years. Lived on Twin Oak for 10 years before that, so been here my whole life. Bought my house because I had a beautiful backyard, love my house, I own my house. Paid taxes now for 21 years. I've also been the president of Penn Hills Baseball, 6 years. Spent a lot of time with the youth in Penn Hills. A lot of our graduates, recently I know. 4 years ago, demolition started behind the house. Complete devastation of wildlife habitat, trees. I was told it was to be a grading project. So I watched from my backyard. I have a direct view of the demolition that has occurred. 10 to 100 trucks a day, triaxle trucks dumping every day, 6 days a week. I look around here and I see my neighbors, and I'm really happy that they're here today. My yard is directly affected, kind of like a V here, all right? And I see about 10 or 12 of my neighbors here directly. On a good day, nice day, it's a dust storm. My house is covered in dirt. My garden, I have a beautiful garden, covered in dirt. My children do not want to play in the backyard. Bang, 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 beep, 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 8 hours a day. 5 o'clock in the morning, the buses start, idle for 2 hours. Go out, pick the kids up and back. Heavy equipment starts at 6:30. All I hear is idling all day. Trucks start at 7:45, 8 o'clock. A lot of times earlier than 8 o'clock. I know it's an 8 o'clock permit. The smell of diesel all morning, all afternoon. All I hear is the trucks running all day, the backhoes, the skid steers, and the large heavy equipment. Extremely loud. The bang will wake you up out of a sleep with your windows shut. If you're out in the backyard, forget about it. It's scary. All day, 100 times a day. Each truck bangs 2-3 times a day. I've witnessed workers throw tires out of the back of the truck. I actually called the bus garage, complained about that. They did come and pick them up. I watched them throwing tires out of the back of the truck into my backyard. Cussing. I've seen people go into the bathroom. They speak loudly. All I hear is cussing all day. Now the dirt bikes like my backyard. I don't mind dirt bikes, but they're in my backyard ripping it up. As soon as the heavy equipment stops, even before that, dirt bikes, people. It's a landfill now behind our houses. I heard someone say about new taxes last week. If I understand real estate, the only time we get new taxes if they put buildings in the back. It's going to be a parking lot. It already is a parking lot. We triple the number of buses, triple the amount of diesel, fuel, people, the smell. It settles. You know that. I'm not sure if there was any air pollution qualities done. Rainwater runoff. The water is now mudsliding into the base of our backyards. At this point, I don't think it can be reasonably fixed. It's been 4 years of commercial demolition. I think the permit is to become commercial at the highest level. Right now, it's residential, industrial 1. It's already commercial. If you have 50 to 100 trucks backing up into your backyard on a daily basis, that's commercial. The buses are now 200-300 yards behind Salzburg. Before it was always on Salzburg. Now it's already in our backyard. If they put 200-300 more trucks there, I'm afraid that we're going to have a problem. I'm done. I own my house. I don't have to live here anymore. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. Mr. Blackwell, can I just, Mr. Blackwell, can I have you for one moment, because I want to be clear as to what we're talking about. So we had a public hearing on this last week, and this ordinance is a very limited in scope, correct?
That's correct. I'm not sure if you want me to wait until other comments have been said, or if you would like me to speak now.
Yeah, I think maybe we'll wait till public comment is over, but, just to be clear, we'll let this gentleman speak, and then just to be clear, you can clarify that we're not talking about, exactly the limited scope that we're talking about tonight.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Calabrese and Council. First thing that Greg Swatchik, 648 Gramick Lane. The first thing I would like to do, publicly here is thank the mayor for being instrumental in delaying a vote on this. Not only was it tabled, but she introduced, with your concurrence, an additional council non-voting meeting to try and afford an opportunity to have a back and forth in not so much of a rigid formal setting where maybe more comprehensive understandings can exchange between all of our brains. So thank you very much for that. It sort of seeded the clouds and planted the bulbs that are beginning to grow this spring, as you can all see. What I'd like to do is just spend one of my minutes and tell you, I got this from the PA Department of Economic Development. They have a thing called the MPC, Municipal Planning's Code, and there's a series of things, one on zoning hearing and one on zoning. And I've read through them a few times. I'm not an expert. The solicitor probably knows this front and back. But in order to capture, for you to just realize why I even became interested in this. I don't live in this neighborhood. I actually feel very sorry for these people. I did live in a neighborhood, though, and still do in '95 when DeAndrea built the Vokalek building. And we had Wilkins commercial encroachment coming into Penn Hills. That's the experience and only experience I have with Penn Hills and government here. This reminded me of the same thing. When I came to the Planning Commission reorganization meeting, I was the only one here with Mr. Kreis and his engineer. And there was one thing on the agenda, it was this item. And I saw the plan real quick on the screen, and I realized I was the only one in the room. And I didn't know if people got any notice, or sufficient notice, or they just decided not to come. But from everyone I talked to, and it was just a handful of people, no one knew of this. So I basically looked into it myself. I got these manuals, and this isn't to my surprise, it's what I suspected. I don't know chapter and verse of laws in that, but I have a sense of what's right, and usually I can find proof to that. So under substantive validity challenge, which in a sense this is, and if you just bear with me, you'll see why. I was told it wasn't at one point by people here. A landowner who desires to challenge the substantive validity of a land use ordinance has two choices. That's it. One, a request for a curative amendment, or a substantive validity challenge. The governing body, you, has exclusive jurisdiction to hear a curative amendment request. That's what we're doing, and that's why we're here. The next thing is the zoning.
Just to let the speaker know, you've exceeded the 3 minutes. If you could please conclude.
Okay. The rest of the manuals that I reviewed says the same thing and words it in ways to better understand. Meg told me that we're not doing a curative amendment. It's not a municipal curative amendment. It's not a landowner curative amendment. It's not a substantive validity challenge. But it is, in fact, a landowner curative amendment. And it's a hybrid of a substantive validity challenge. You can check with the solicitor. So what I wanted to do, because it's important, I know I'm finishing, but this was disputed also. It's not just for tomorrow, it's for the future, Christ said. We're not looking to add a couple hundred vehicles overnight. We want to plan ahead. These things I sent to you where it showed the zoning classifications, and I know you had a chance to look at them, but this about 50 acres off Salzburg Road that includes the current garage, most of it, 90% of it is residential
Sir, tonight
woods.
we're not talking about that. That's not what's on the agenda tonight.
It's all owned by Mr. Kreis. It's all the same project, is what I'm trying to suggest. It's a domino theory of events that will happen over time that will probably change all of it to industrial zoning. And under industrial zoning, there is
If you could please conclude, sir. You're at 4 minutes. You've exceeded your time.
Okay.
Okay, thank you very
I'll
much.
conclude by saying this. I don't think that 3 minutes a person is enough time for you, as smart as you are, to have all the information as a juror to make an intelligent decision by saying, hurry up in the OJ case. I got a tee-off time at 3 o'clock. Thank you.
Any further public comment?
Good evening. I'm Tina Kirsch, Kirsch. I live at 6865 Tunnelview Drive. And I understand that this particular meeting is only for the parcel of property that is from the bus garage on Salzburg Road down to the property that abuts the dance studio. However, that parcel is going from whatever it's zoned now to light industrial. At no time have we found out what that means for the traffic on Salzburg Road, the noise to our backyards. We haven't received any information about any of this, and I don't think that the people in my neighborhood have been properly notified of what's going to be happening on the street that they have to use to go into and out of their property daily. So it is more than just this little parcel. There's more that will be affecting our lives. And to make it sound like that this is just a small part of, and not related to the noise or the problems that we're having with this property, is, I don't think, true. And I don't think that we've had enough facts to know how this is going to affect us. And I don't know if you all have the facts, but you haven't relayed any information to us about any of these studies or any of this information so that we can, or that you can make a proper decision as to what's going to be happening to our property values and to our ability to enjoy our property from this development. And we haven't even heard from Mr. Christ as to what his plans are. We've had informal conversation in a meeting, and he didn't even get up and speak in the last meeting because you didn't have time for that. So I would just ask that there be a little more information provided so that we can inform our neighbors as to what's happening here, and so that you won't be making what seems to be a rash decision to me, or an uninformed decision that will be affecting us forever. So thank you.
Any further public comment? Can you?
My name is Rudolph Bucci. I live at 101 Martinique Drive, and I have a front row seat to the mess that's behind our backyard. Just like the other gentleman, I have a front row seat as well. It's just slightly up the hill from there. I vehemently oppose any changes. We live in a neighborhood with people who walk their dogs, who are kind to one another, and we have generally some peace and quiet at times. But from when I moved in there until the past 3 years, that peace and quiet has gone down dramatically. There is none now other than Sundays. And it's not a very nice neighborhood anymore. Not because of the people in it who are all Penn Hills people, who mind their business but have a smile on their face, who care about one another. It's just, it's a damn shame what it's turned into. So for the record, I absolutely oppose any changes to the zoning. I would encourage everybody here to oppose it, and I will look into this more because I think this is being railroaded, and it doesn't make me very happy. I've heard all the arguments, and I can hear everybody's opinion, but these people live it. You guys don't. So that's all I have to say. I think 3 minutes is ridiculous. It's not enough time.
Any further public comment?
that means there's gonna be another 150 buses. That means twice the traffic trying to get onto Salzburg Road, and where they're gonna enter and exit without having an accident or a red light needs to be brought out before all this is just, okay, fine. Whether he's given up some tax dollars to Penn Hills, that's great. But I think whether the state is allowing him to come off onto Salzburg Road with another exit, we ought to know where it's at. People come around the bend from McDonald's, come up over that hill, 40, 50 mile an hour. You're gonna have accidents. If you got 150 cars up there, he's got another 150 cars down below. Now he's gonna add another 150 school buses. Maybe yous don't live on that side of town, I don't know. But people on that side of town would like to have some more information about this.
Any further public comment? Would you like to speak at all? Anybody from Christ? I just want to be clear that we never stopped anybody from speaking at we had a public hearing, and that is different than a voting meeting. At our voting meetings, we are limited, but we have had hearings prior to this. So someone had indicated that we stopped anybody from speaking. That, just to set the record straight, that did not occur at our last public hearing.
Good evening. My name is Tim Christ. I'm president of Christ Transportation Incorporated. We service the Penn Hill School Districts, among other districts in the area. Also, I'm a property owner individually, along with my wife, Diane. I'm listening to the concerns here tonight. I've tried to address some of those concerns last week, and as it was mentioned, we ran out of time last week, and obviously I didn't come to the podium and speak. You know, I always wanted to be a good neighbor. We pride ourselves with our district, okay, to always focus about the kids, okay, and the parents in every situation, to be a good provider and a big part of the community. And we do a lot of different things in this community besides this project. One thing I want to emphasize, this site's not only for additional parking and for the employees, which 75% of them live within this community, it's also now a certified PennDOT testing site, where we can help people get their CDL licenses to help them future in their careers as well. We also use it for a certified training center through the Department of Transportation as well. I'm very aware of the noise, the dump trucks. Obviously, that's outside of our general operation. My focus is school buses. The excavating that's been going there for the last couple of years, we will set parameters and timelines and to appease the residents. I have talked to the general contractor a couple of times about this and also the operating hours. There needs to be timelines set. I will agree with that when the project comes to a completion. That doesn't need to be years and years and years. Obviously, if I lived in that backyard and the tailgates were swinging, the backup alarms, I understand completely. And you don't understand unless you have buses in your backyard. Well, I usually have 200 to 300 buses in my backyard, but I'm in that business. And I get paid for that. But I'm conscientious of the concerns, and I want everyone to know we're requesting 272 additional spaces. 60 of those spaces are going to be just repositioning buses from one side, in which you see from your home, to the upper side of the lot. We currently have an overcrowding issue, and we've had some minor fender benders within that lot itself. It continues as long as I'm alive to be a school bus operation like it has been for the last 60 years. Years ago, I was told there was over 160 buses, almost double what we have there today, because at one time, Penn Hills was twice the size as far as children attending the school district. Obviously, over the years, it's declined, but in the meantime, there's other schools that need help. And we're trying to help other schools that neighbor Penn Hills to get kids to and from school right now. There's a severe shortage of drivers, and for some reason, we're getting people from this community in this area to come in and help and work for our company. And that's why we're growing. It's not advantageous to bring people from Pittsburgh or other school districts here to get their bus. People want to come here because of the environment in which we created. I'm very, again, conscientious and aware that property owners be happy to sit down with a round table after this is over and talk about a strategy and timelines with you. That includes vegetation, planting trees, or whatever it takes to be a good neighbor. But again, that's what we're after. That's all I'm after. I have no vision of it being a McDonald's or a Walmart Plaza 50 or 60 years from now. That's not our intent at all. It's very limited where you can park school buses in communities to serve the school district you serve. Another big advantage, if there would be a natural disaster, an emergency or whatever, those buses are deemed through the school district to evacuate citizens from this area to put them in safe places, whether it be a tornado, severe weather, or a disaster on one of the roads. You know, again, we want to be good partners, and I'll do everything I can, you know, to make it better than what it is. Would you like to say anything? Anyone else? My engineer? Where did my engineer go? Oh, there he is. All right. I lost it. I mean, you just want to identify yourself and maybe just give somebody a brief overview.
Yeah, hello, my name's Alex Yingling. I work with Geotech Engineering. We've worked on this project for a few years. As part of this bus lot, to address some of the traffic concerns, we were required by PennDOT to design and submit a new driveway design. So we've obtained an HOP permit, highway occupancy permit, through PennDOT. We had that driveway designed and submitted for over 1,000 trips, I believe, in and out. And PennDOT did not see an issue with that. I understand that might seem hard to believe, but they take into account signals, signage on the road, and whether the road can handle that sort of traffic, and we were not required to do an additional study on that. As far as some concerns about stormwater runoff and erosion control, we also were required to obtain a permit through the DEP called an NPDES permit, and that essentially covers stormwater management for construction, erosion control, restoration afterwards, and that permit was reviewed and approved through the Allegheny Conservation District and is still active. As far as what is being talked about tonight, just to clarify once more, we're talking about extending a zoning line on the parcel that is between the bus garage and the dance studio. It is an approximately 24-acre wooded lot. 5.5 acres of that already, I believe, is zoned light industrial, which is the part that, the section of it that abuts Salzburg Road. To fit in the stormwater and the E&S controls and the grading to make the site work, we requested to extend the zoning line to the north, and it covers approximately another 8 acres. So after this is all done, there'll still be around 10.5 acres or so of wooded ground as a buffer between this bus lot itself and some of the, not necessarily where you folks live, the area to the rear, more towards, I believe it's the swim club, and there's some residential houses there too. So I guess that's about it. Thanks.
Any further public from the comment? Any further comment from the public?
My name's Ron Dankmeyer. I'm a homeowner on Invicta Drive, 553 Invicta Drive. I'm one of the guys that walks his dog through the neighborhood, and my dog has an aversion to loud noises, fireworks, firecrackers, slamming tailgates. Scares the crap out of my little dog when I'm taking him for a walk. He wants to pull and go back home, and it's a constant thing. And I'm a simple man, don't really know a whole lot. Maybe you can explain to me how this has been going on for 4 years, and we're just asking for approval for it now. I know that this bus garage wasn't used continuously on Salzburg Road. I know at times they've used another area, Davidson Road, I believe, and Thompson Run Road to park their buses. And those areas were not a butt to a housing community that, a lot of people have lived in for years and enjoyed the wildlife, the backyard with the woods, the deers coming up into their yards, and now you got muddy fields, rocks, banging noises, scares my dog, more than likely all of the wildlife in the area. It's just a shame. It's truly a shame what's going on.
if you lived there, you'd know. You'd see what's going on there. You see the land stripping that goes on in other areas of the country for mining purposes, to take over the land and how it hurts the communities. This is hurting our community. That's what I have to say. Thank you. Mayor.
Any further, please come up.
My name is Barbara Goodson. I live at 302 Grove Road, Verona. That's the mailing address for Penn Hills. And I sat here and listened, and I hear the people talking about they never heard of this project. Why in the world would you do a project and not communicate to the people and the residents that you're going to do this? And share with them how you're going to do it. Are they willing to have it in their neighborhood? And even a notice of this meeting. I had to hear about a meeting that was going on here. So you need a better way of letting the residents of Penn Hills know about any kind of meeting you have, what your plans are. Because we need to know beforehand, before you put your name, sign it off for money that we have to end up paying regardless. So you need to start communicating better with the community of what you plan to do. He did a research, PennDOT, it's okay for them, but you didn't find out was it okay for the residents. I don't agree with it, and I've been in Penn Hills for over 40-something years, and I got a lot that needs to be done on my part of Penn Hills, and hasn't been addressed. And I couldn't sit there no longer and listen to this, and I need to find out a way. If you got to send a letter to every resident in Penn Hills, what kind of meeting you're having and what it's for, then you have more input of how people feel about what you're doing.
Any other comments? Mr. Black, oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, ma'am.
I apologize. I already did speak. Again, I'm
Right, I'm
Tina.
sorry. So
I'm
the time for public comment, if there's anybody else that wants to comment, that's fine, but we really are adhering strictly to the rules.
Okay. Does anybody want to comment on it going from a parking lot to CDL training? Now we're hearing said there will be backup.
Okay, no
seating
further.
and
I'm sorry, ma'am. We are adhering to this. Mr. Blackwell? Mr. Blackwell, would you like to speak?
Sure. Would you like me to just start at the beginning? I think that first I'd like to say that what we're talking about tonight is a separate property from the grading property. So the site plan process started in 2016 for this site. And the planning department, the planning commission required a large number of conditions on Christ Transportation. And there was some pushback because they didn't have room. And those improvements included sidewalks, landscaping, stormwater management, things like that.
Can you speak up just a little bit, please? I'm afraid people
So
don't hear.
we started out in 2016 working on this project with the site plan. So over the years, we have worked with Christ Transportation to come up with the plan that we have today. So in 2021, in December 2021, they came in for final site plan approval for this site. And it was approved by the Planning Commission. And it has 9 conditions. And one of those things was, and many of those things, it was stormwater management, sidewalks, things like that. This site, we're going to have sidewalks on the entire 1,300 to 1,400 feet of sidewalk. That'll be continuous sidewalk from the first lot in Alcoma Drive all the way to the Plum border, with the exception of UPMC, which I've been in contact with them trying to see if we can get that 100 feet or so of sidewalk completed. So that would be continuous sidewalks. But the point is that put those things in when it finally came down to it was that they needed more room. So at my recommendation, I said, together we said, let's rezone a piece of this property to try to accommodate those things, so we can accommodate the planning commission and the planning department requirements. I think that at the same time, there's been a grading operation going on an adjacent site. And the reason that's particularly important is that there have been 5 or 6 hearings about the site plan, about this site. It has been posted, advertised, letters sent to residents about the site
Please, we're going to do this in an orderly fashion. We've given you the opportunity to speak. We had a public hearing. Last week we had a hearing where there was give and take. Please do not interrupt. We're making a public record. There's a court reporter here. Thank you.
So at that time, excuse me, so there's been multiple hearings on this site and multiple opportunities for residents to speak. Granted, it was for adjacent property owners. That is true. And then on the March 21st, the February 21st council meeting, Mayor, you asked that the entire neighborhood be notified. You asked to spread out, go beyond what the municipality's planning code says about adjacent properties and include the whole neighborhood. So we sent out 352 letters to property owners. And that's why you had 3 homeowners last week coming up to the microphone to speak about this. And then tonight you have more because of that extended notification that you requested. So the zoning change didn't require notifying all those neighbors, first of all. But I think the most revealing thing at the last week's hearing, the public hearing you had, was not the concern about the bus garage, but the grading that was going on. And that's a separate grading operation. And we had talked about last week how we hadn't been receiving complaints about this. And this has been going on, people say a couple of years. It's been going on since 2010, 2013. I'm aware that remnants of the former high school is at the bottom of that grading operation. So and that new high school opened in 2013. It was a grading and a fill site for the school district at that time. It was owned by owned by the railroad. Union Railroad is leased by Myers. It was leased by the school district. It was leased by Myers. When Mr. Christ Transportation purchased it in 2016, he came in for a grading permit. That's the first time we received a grading permit on this site. It expanded. It was continuing. We had him come in again in 2020. We got another grading permit. And these have engineered drawings, engineered plans of what's going to happen. So like I said last week at the hearing, we could be criticized for not having a site plan, not having a final drawing of what is going on there. But I think what did come out of those hearings, I've had multiple phone calls last week. As a result, I'm sure you all have also, and discussions with the contractor, Mr. Christ, and that, as he stated, people understand that it was going on, but it needs to come to an end, and it needs to come to an end soon. So when hours of operation can be discussed, what it's going to finally look like could be discussed, how to remedy the noise, the time, things like that. Those things can all be discussed. And my understanding is that Mr. Christ would like to have this entire operation done within a year. That might be maybe 6 months even. That might be optimistic. I'm not sure that it could be done in that time. So, but I think that most people they were looking for an end date. When is this going to end? When is it going to stop? But again, that's the grading part, not the zoning change that's before you tonight. So I'm not sure if I can answer if there's anything else as far as the traffic, they have a highway occupancy permit. It's a low level highway occupancy permit, low level occupancy for the traffic. That takes from 25 to 750 vehicles. Now you heard tonight they said as many as 1,000. Those trips, if it were to go beyond 1,000, that's when they said they might have to come back in to revisit that permit. And 1,000 trips might sound like a lot. Right now they have 160 vehicles on the site. They have 90 buses, 60 vans, that's 150 vehicles. They're asking for 50 more. If we said, and they're asking, the site plan has 272 spaces. We've also in previous testimony discussed with Mr. Christ that the school district contract requires that 15% of the buses stay on site. They have to sort of be in reserve. So if you have 200 buses, that's 90 buses, 60 vans, and an extra 50 buses that they're requesting. That's 200. 30 are going to be sitting there idle. But let's say that the Salzburg Road, it's average daily volume is what, so there's 10,000 cars a day is the average daily volume on Salzburg Road. And if we took the 200 buses and, let's make it 300 buses, right? And so we said, and they were gonna go in and out of there, that's 600 trips a day. And then let's say they go out and out of that twice, so that's 1,200 trips a day, and you might say, wow, then they've gone over the 1,000. But 1,200 trips a day, they don't take kids every day. So it's 1,200 trips times 180 school days, divided by 365 is 600 trips. So even if they doubled the amount of buses they had today, they would not exceed that highway occupancy permit. And I could do the math for you again if you said, okay, they had 200 buses, let's make it 400.
That's fine, I don't think that's.
Right, but so traffic is not an issue. But I think the biggest concern, most of the testimony you've had tonight is not about the bus garage, it's not about the buses, it's not about the history of the buses, it's the grading. And the grading needs to be resolved, there's no doubt about it. And Mr. Kreis talked about having a roundtable, talking with the neighbors, talking about the concerns and how to get that done. But the zoning change you're talking about tonight is 8 acres, which allows them to have enough space to do the landscaping, the sidewalks, and the stormwater management.
Any comment from council?
Madam Mayor, I want to say thank you to Chris for giving us that very detailed explanation. I believe you shed a lot of clarity on that for us tonight. And I also want to say thank you for putting it out there on how many times that this has been advertised in the newspaper in the public hearing last week, because I never would want anyone to feel that we were doing anything without you knowing. So we're very transparent council, and we definitely did put that information out. And I'm so sorry if some of you missed it, but I am very happy that you are here tonight.
Time for public comment is over. Any further public comment? I'm sorry, any further comment from council? You know, this was, one of the questions was when this all began, and I can tell you that none of us are pretty certain that not one of us was here in 2010 or 13 when all of this began. But we all were here whenever this was scheduled to go in February. We are elected officials and we depend on our professional staff. We have engineers, we have the director, we have planning commission, we deal with people throughout the county and throughout the state. So the reality is we have to rely on the information that they give us. This has been going on for this particular, as far as Mr. Kreis, as far as I know, it's well over 4 years. There have been meetings for the planning commission. There was the February council meeting was to have been the time for the vote. At that time, although all proper notice according to the law was followed, we said, no, we're going to put the brakes on this. We just want to make sure, because when we advertised above and beyond, when we did advertise, and probably 5 or 6 people, residents who lived there, did show up, nonetheless, we still said, no, we want everybody who lives in that area, even though it's not required. And so they sent out over 340 letters, and I'm so glad there are some new faces here. Not that it makes any difference, because we don't live there, I get it. I mean, we live in Penn Hills, but we're not seeing what you're seeing, we're not hearing what you're hearing. I can just tell you that until last week, we didn't have any complaints. Doesn't mean that you didn't have any, it's just that we hadn't heard them. Last week after the meeting, when everything was, after the public hearing, where there is room for give and take, because those of you who attend our council meetings, you know that when you come to a voting meeting, it's more formal, and there are timelines. When you go to a non-voting meeting, it lends itself for give and take. But something happened after that meeting that I haven't seen. I think that might have been the first time that I've ever seen it. We have 2 groups that appear to have competing interests and may appear to be at odds. At the end of that meeting, I saw probably all of the residents. I don't recall maybe if somebody left, But they were talking with Mr. Kreis, and it sounds to me like he hears your concerns. He said here tonight he wants to be a good neighbor. As we sit here, you know, we're on council, and we're only as good as the information that we get, but I can tell you that we relied on the information from the professionals. There were hearings. I talked with some representatives who talk with PennDOT. They don't even monitor the Port Authority. They wouldn't even do it. You know, this is, Penn Hills at one time, well, we are currently the largest suburb outside the city of Pittsburgh. It sounds like the biggest concerns are the noise and what you're seeing. That's not what's on here tonight. It's a very limited ordinance. This is to actually move the buses or vans that you're seeing and to put more parking spaces. Is this going to turn into something else? I don't know. That's not what's before us tonight. I just know that the things that we are hearing that are troublesome are the lighting. I'm told they're going to work with that. Or maybe the noise. I'm told that they're going to grade that. There will be buffers. There's already about 10 acres of wild, I want to say forest, but I don't know if that's the proper words. That already exists. We compare that with things like our high school students. Other people would be able to use this to earn a CDL. That's probably one of the hottest licenses to have right now. A few years ago, Penn Hills was voted one of the best places to retire. Part of that is, I mean, think about it. Who's going to drive a school bus, right? You're interrupted. You're up in the morning before everybody else is up, and in the middle of your workday before everybody else finishes. My understanding is that 75% of the employees are from Penn Hills. So there are a lot of good things that will come from this, but I hear you. I think Mr. Kreis hears you. And these issues are not insurmountable. We need to talk about, and I think that was what was talked about at the end of the public hearing last time. We can talk about noise. We can talk about remedying those sorts of things. Tonight is a very small, limited issue of less, I think they said about 7 acres, which is not, has nothing to do with the grading project. That's a separate issue. And most assuredly, that needs to be dealt with. But that's not what's on the agenda tonight. So if we said tonight, hey, let's all vote no, or let's take this off the agenda, that doesn't remedy the real problem. Because the long and short of it is, the real problem is the grading project. And that's something that I think we need to deal with that. But that's not what's on the agenda tonight. So, tonight, you know, I will be voting in favor of this because it's so limited. But the really good thing is, I think for the first time since 2010 or 12 or whatever, it finally caught everyone's attention. So this might actually the best thing that ever happened to the neighborhood, because finally we can talk about, when will this end? How can we limit the noise? How can we limit whatever the problems are? That's not what's on the agenda tonight. But what's on the agenda tonight most assuredly brought this to the forefront, because I can tell you, everybody on council here, we hear all sorts of complaints, but honestly, and I think I speak for everyone, until last week, we didn't hear any complaints. Doesn't mean to say you don't have them, but we couldn't help remedy them until then. So I think it's good news that this came forward and we can try to help remedy them, but that's not what's on the agenda tonight. It's very limited. And it now certainly has brought has our antenna up now, so we can pay attention to other issues that are before you. Roll call.
Mayor Calabrese,
Yes.
Councilor Fascio,
Yes.
Councilman Getzey. No. Councilwoman Sapp,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Pecora.
I abstain.
So the vote is 3 in favor, 1 no, 1 abstention.
Correct.
Motion passes.
Please keep in mind that Mr. Christ said that he's willing to do a roundtable, and we certainly are willing to help facilitate in any way. So we're very conscious that tonight is just a small portion, but let's not let this be the end of it. Let's make a list of what we think the issues are and how we can overcome those other issues, and let's have that roundtable. Let's talk about resolving it.
Mayor Cowles,
Yes.
when does the grading project become an issue? How do we make that an issue with Penn Hills Council, since we're all here? When and how does that get to your table on the agenda?
Well, actually, that's something that we can probably do. That's what I said, we should do a roundtable for that, or do a workshop or something like that, because the problem is, that was on the agenda years ago, before any of us were ever on, so that has already happened. So now I think it's gonna have to be a matter of, let's be good neighbors to each other, and what can we do to make that happen? Because what we do up here is we pass resolutions and ordinances, and I'll have to talk to the solicitor, but I mean, that ship has sailed. That ship sailed years ago. Do you understand? That's already done. That grading project happened long before any of us were even up here. But that doesn't mean that we want to ignore that. That doesn't mean we don't hear your complaints. And that doesn't mean we don't want to help facilitate resolution of those. Okay? So when I'm down here, I'm going to walk down there and we're going to talk about when we can do that. But it won't actually be, as far as I know, and I'll have to check with the solicitor, that won't ever be a formal agenda meeting, but it could very well be a workshop meeting. So I think that's part of the problem. People don't really understand the process. What happens is the third Monday of every month, we have a voting meeting. And at that meeting, we follow really, really strict strict policy. However, we also have non-voting meetings where it lends itself for things like someone wanted to speak. You know, we don't want to interrupt each other, and we still need to be courteous to each other, but it's not as formal as a voting meeting. So as soon as I get off the podium here, I can figure out how we can facilitate that, if you'll just wait till I get down. Thank you all so very much, and please keep in mind, this is not the end of this. This is really just the beginning of it, and hopefully this is the beginning of resolving the what you have to hear and see from your backyards. Thank you so much. Have a very good night. This meeting is adjourned.
I'm going to end the call.